Hey guys, I ended Challenger in the last 4 sets, and in this video I just wanted to give you my thoughts on how I think you should be playing the current patch. So in the current meta, there's a few notable comps that stand out. The first board is going to be the full dragon board, where you're just going to be playing 4 dragons with one of the AP dragons as your carry. This could be Aoshin, Aesol, or Shyvana. And the other boards that are strong are mostly from the attack speed tree. This is just going to be XAYAH and Aphelios. These 3 comps are probably by far the most strong and consistent in the current patch. Now the issue here is that the AP boards require you to go level 9 to play 4 dragons, and they require you over 100 gold to build the board. Whereas if you look at the attack speed boards like Aphelios, you literally only need 50 gold and you're good to go. You have a fully capped Aphelios board. If you're playing AP, even if you high roll out of your mind and you go 9 and then you roll down for all your dragons, unless you end up 2-starring all of your dragons level 9 and you have good items on Aesol, you're probably still going to get shit on by a 50 gold board like Aphelios. If you get a fully capped dragon board, they do beat out the Aphelios and XAYAH boards, but again, it's insanely hard to get there. And a lot of the times, you're going to be better off just trying to play AD flex, because your average placement from playing AD is just going to be a lot more consistent and higher than trying to play AP. So despite what I said about these expensive AP boards that are really hard to build, there are a few AP comps that are good if you play them from the right spot, and this is going to be DAEJA and DRAGONMANCER NUNU / Lee Sin. DAEJA could be played if it's a good Mirage, and DRAGONMANCER could be played if you get a DRAGONMANCER spat. OLAF is a comp that could be played if you get an OLAF early and you can start sacking him for free AD. And finally, if you're just low rolling the entire early game and you're playing AD, at level 7 you can just roll down for a variation of one of these units and try to play for top 4. In this last bullet point, I just noted these 4 units down to make you aware that these units are very weak. Most of the time, you're better off just not clicking them at all. With that being said, let's get right into the comps. So the first comp I'm going to talk about is going to be DARKFLIGHT. DARKFLIGHT is probably still going to be one of the strongest comps right now, even after the nerf in the B patch. You generally want to play into DARKFLIGHT if you have a DARKFLIGHT opener, which means just getting 2 DARKFLIGHT units early like Aphelios and Rel, and starting with one of the components of Zeke's. That way you could just go for the other item off carousel and have the Zeke's early. Getting the Zeke's early is really important to DARKFLIGHT, because if you don't have the Zeke's, you're probably going to lose every single fight until stage 4-1. You could keep the XAYAH route open if you start with Zeke's, but nah, fuck it. You're better off just playing Aphelios. The other 2 core items that not a lot of people talk about is going to be Last Whisper and Edge of Night. Because Aphelios doesn't really have a good front line, you need the fights to end really quickly. So Last Whisper is crucial for this because it shreds their armor, allowing you to end the fights within 5 seconds. And you need Edge of Night on your Graves because you generally want Graves to be the last one alive on your team to clean up. So if you get an Aphelios opener, the game plan for Aphelios is just to play your strongest board until level 6. At level 6, you could decide whether or not you're weak or strong, and if you're too weak, you could roll a bit to get this board. This duplicate Rel could either be a Rengar or Aphelios. You just want to play a duplicate DARKFLIGHT just to get another Zeke's onto your board. And at level 7, if you're weak and you have to roll, you could stabilize with the 4 Cannoneer board like this. And then there are actually a lot of level 8 variations you could play. One variation is just to play the default 4 Cannoneer route with Cavaliers, Senna, Aphelios, Graves, and Zeri. You want to stack all your tank items on your Hecarim and then all your damage items on your Graves. Your Last Whisper could be on your Aphelios, and you want to spread your Zeke such that your carry gets as much Zeke's value as possible. The other variation is if Namzi is a Cannoneer. In this case, you could play 6 Cannoneers at level 8. You could also play around Swain. A lot of people shit on Swain, but actually Swain is pretty good. He's a pretty good tank if you itemize him correctly and you get him to 2-star, and he could definitely top 4 you a lot of games, even though he probably won't win you many lobbies. And finally, the last variation is if your Cannoneers happens to be super contested, you could play around Assassins instead. In this case, you would just itemize your Graves, or if you don't get it, your Nyla. Even better, if you get a Sinspat, you could Sinspat your Graves or Aphelios and play around 4 Assassin. So next up, I'm just going to talk about XAYAH. So this is probably the strongest variation you could play. In this set, the 6th Rage Wing you're going to play is just going to be Rakan. And because Jace is a guild unit, you also play Jace, because he has pretty good CC and he's also pretty tanky and does a lot of damage. You could either backline him or frontline him, but in this case, I'm just going to frontline him and put all my tank items on him. And the late game comp is going to include Shyvana. Without Shyvana, XAYAH is probably just going to be a top 4 comp. You need the Shyvana to close out your games. Itemization for XAYAH is just going to be Gwyn's +2, but GS and IE are really good on her. And then for Shyvana, it's probably Ionic Spark +2 AP items. Now, anyone could take this comp and get a first, but the skill from playing XAYAH comes from not hitting these units. So for example, what if you don't hit the Shyvana? You gotta get a little creative and try to figure out how you could get a 4th from this spot. So if you don't hit the Shyvana, you could end up just playing Zippy as a placeholder for now. Zippy is good because he holds tank items pretty well, and he also gives 3 extra guild onto your guild bonus because you're already going to be playing 3 guild units. An alternative is you could also play Idis. Idis is good here because Rakan in this set is a Rage Wing and a Guardian, and because Idis is a guardian himself, this is a really good synergy for your front line. If you don't hit any of these dragons, you could just play any 2 random tank units. So I could just play Silas and Pantheon, and that's a decent enough front line for you to stall until you hit your Shyvana. So probably something like this. So next up, I'm going to talk about the AD/Bruiser tree. In the Bruiser tree, there are 2 main comps you could play. It's just going to be Olaf or the level 7 Siphon board. I'll first go through the Olaf board. So you generally only want to play Olaf if you end up getting an Olaf really early. This is because it will enable you to start farming AD on your Olaf from round 1. And by the time it's stage 4, you're probably going to have an extra 50 AD on your Olaf. If you don't have this extra AD, you're probably just going to bot 4 anyway. You don't want to force this comp if you don't get the Olaf early. The level 7 board is just going to be these 7 units minus the Zoe. At level 8, you just play Zoe for 3 mage just because Zoe is a good unit. You put all your AD items on your Olaf, and all your leftover items could just go on your Pantheon or your Diana. At level 7, you're going to slow roll for Olaf 3 and Diana 3. If you don't hit, you're probably 4th or 5th. If you know you don't have the goal to hit Olaf 3 or Diana 3, you could just go level 8 and play the Zoe. It's fine, but generally you need the Olaf 3 to win. Another variation you could play is if you happen to get a Scale Scorn Augment or Emblem. So in this board, because I dropped Braum and I still have the Scale Scorn Augment, I'm going to have 4 Scale Scorn and 4 Warrior because I'm playing both Yone and Yasuo. And your 8th unit could just be your Kiana. This will give you Assassin for your Diana 3. And finally at level 9, to cap out your board, you just play your Lee Sin to benefit your Yasuo. This will give you both Tempest and Dragonmancer. The last variation is if you get a Sin Spat. In this case, you could just play around Sin Olaf just like the old days. Your 3 other Assassins are just going to be Diana, Nyla, and Kiana. But you only want to throw in the 8th unit after you get your 3-star Olaf slow rolling at level 7. So next up are going to be the top 4 comps of the AD tree. You basically want to play one of these comps if you're on track to go 7th or 8th, and you want to roll down at level 7 to try to stabilize your board and play for 4th or 5th. One board you could roll down for at level 7 is something like this. You're just going to play around 6 Whispers with Siphon and Pantheon, and you're going to play 2 more Bruisers such as Olaf and Jax to stabilize your board. Here you would just itemize your Pantheon, Olaf, and Siphon with Bruiser items. Another variation you could roll for is going to include Graves and Nyla. In this case, you're going to play 6 Whispers as usual, but you're also going to play Kiana because it gives Nyla Assassin and it gives Graves Tempest. Here you would itemize your Siphon, Graves, and your Nyla. A weaker variation of this board is just going to be replacing 2 of the units with Olaf and Diana. Because these 2 units are most likely going to be 2-starred, they're not going to be as impactful versus if you're playing the reroll version, but hey, if you're playing for 5th or 6th, this is just fine. The last variation is going to include Lee Sin, Yasuo, and Graves. This is going to give you 2 Tempest, 2 Dragonmancer, and 2 Warrior. So next, I'm going to run through the comps of the AP tree. The 3 AP comps this patch are going to be DAEJA, the Dragonmancer comp, or the level 9 full dragon board with Aoshin or Aesol carry. So DAEJA is pretty much the exact same as last set. The notable mirages are going to be Pirate's Greed, Execute, and Spell Sword. You don't want to play DAEJA if the mirage is Electric Overload. So at level 7, if you have AP items and you need to roll down and it's a good mirage, you can roll down for this board. Here you're just playing 6 mirage, and then your 2 extra units are going to be Rakan and Hecarim. This is going to give you 2 Ragewing and 2 Guardian. Another variation to this is playing around Guild instead. So in this case, you're dropping those extra 2 Mirage units for Sejuani, Twitch, and Jace. And then at level 8, because in set 7.5, you could play more than 1 dragon, you could actually just play a second dragon as your front line. So in this case, a good second dragon you could play is Idis, because Idis is a guardian just like Leona. So your front line synergizes very well. Your extra units could just be Yasuo and Pantheon. This is going to give you 6 Mirage and 2 Warrior. Alternatively, you don't have to play Idis. You could drop this for Shyvana as well. So probably something like this. So next is the Dragonmancer comp. You pretty much only are able to play this comp if you get a spat. The reason why is because to stabilize off the Dragonmancer comp, you need to get 6 Dragonmancer in, but the 6th Dragonmancer is Yasuo. So you're never going to be able to get the 6th Dragonmancer unless you get a Dragonmancer spat. So if you get the spat, you just play your strongest board until level 7, and then depending on your items, you want to slow roll for either NUNU or Lee Sin. Best in slot NUNU is going to be the Dragonmancer spat, Hodge, and BT. So if you have those items, you can just go for NUNU 3. You want to slow roll at level 7 and 2-star all your Dragonmancers, because the higher star level your Dragonmancers are, the bigger the buff onto your NUNU. Your 2 extra units could just be 2 Cavaliers, so it could probably be Hecarim and Sejuani. You could also collect Lee Sins and Volibears along the way, and if you happen to hit them, you could 3-star them as well. This comp actually shits on the Philios board. The Philios board just doesn't have enough damage to burst NUNU down, because every time NUNU gets a kill, he just heals back to full HP. The other variation to Dragonmancer is to stack Lee Sin instead. So in the Lee Sin variation, you want to play a second Tempest like Kiana. And then best in slot Lee Sin items are probably going to be IE, JG, and BT. The BT could be another healing item, so it could be like Hodge or Gunblade. But the concept is the same. You just want to go level 7 while playing strongest board and slow roll until you hit Lee Sin 3, and you collect all the other Dragonmancers along the way and try to 2-star them. So for the Lee Sin route, there are 2 different options. You could go for 3-star Lee Sin, and then just play some random units like Bard or Yasuo. You could also fast 9 and play into the Dragon board instead. So for example, from this spot, once you get an Aoshin, you could play Aoshin instead of Qiyana. This is going to give you 6 Dragonmancer and 4 Tempest if you put the Dragonmancer spat on your Aoshin. If you have the 3-star Lee Sin, you could probably play the 3-star Lee Sin the whole game and secondary carry your Aoshin. If you only have a 2-star Lee Sin, you could transfer over all your Lee Sin items onto your Aoshin and remake the Lee Sin. In this comp, if you're able to go 9, you could also play into 6 Tempest, so you could just play Graves and Qiyana. And if you get another Dragonmancer spat, you could probably play 8 Dragonmancer instead. That's usually a free win. So probably something like this if you get the Dragonmancer spat. Alternatively, if you have 2-star Lee Sin only and you want to play around Aoshin, you could play into the full Dragon board as well. So in the full Dragon board, you generally want to play around 4 dragons. This is because the 4 dragon breakpoint is pretty important. It gives you +1 to your team size, which lets you play an extra legendary unit. This enables you to play 4 dragons and 2 extra units at level 9. So for your 4 dragons, you might be wondering which dragons you should play. The core dragon is probably Shyvana. She's pretty irreplaceable because she just provides a ton of CC and a lot of damage. You want to have 1 tank dragon. So the 2 tank dragons you can play is either Idis or Terra. Idis right now is way stronger than Terra. Siphon is the preferred bruiser dragon, and Asol is the better backline AP dragon. You could play around Asol as well, but these 3 flex slots are all based on who you 2-star. So for example, if you 2-star your Shouyu, you're playing Shouyu over Siphon. If you 2-star your Terra, you're playing Terra over Idis, and etc. For your 2 remaining slots, there are a lot of different options you could go. Generally, you want to just play around 2 legendary units like Yasuo, Bard. You could also go Yasuo, Lee Sin. This gives you Tempest and Dragonmancer. You could also play Yasuo and Pantheon. This gives you Warrior and Whispers. You could even play 2 copies of Yasuo if you happen to hit them. But overall, this comp, it's extremely hard to get to. You could only get to this point if you high roll super hard early game, or if you have a Dragonmancer opener. And the thing is with this comp, unless you 2-star most of your board, you're probably still going to get shit on by Aphelios. But this comp still definitely has the highest cap. It's just extremely expensive to get to this point. So this sums up my flex guide for patch 12.17b. If you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. And when the next patch comes out and the meta changes, I'm going to be releasing another one of these flex guides, so make sure you subscribe to get up to date. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.